We have 11 storytellers on the roster tonight. And they each have 10 minutes to tell a true story based on the theme Busted. Busted. This event will be videotaped by the Missoula Community Access Television as a part of its Media Assistance Grants Program to nonprofit organizations. This will be the first time we've done that, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. This will be the first time that we've had donations at the door. Last time we did this, I had comment cards, and one of the comments was, "Where's the women?" So I put out the word, "Hey, women, bring it." And they did. We have the most women on the Tell Us Something stage we've ever had tonight, so it's going to be phenomenal. We're also going to have the youngest person to tell a story on the Tell Us Something stage tonight, too, so that'll be fun. Hey, if you want to tell a story, the next time we're going to do this is going to be October 9th. And the theme is the things we carry, and we're looking for storytellers for that. The way to do that is to find me, and the best way to do that is to email me, because I'll forget, or I might, and I apologize, because I've done that, and it's not fun. I think we're going to wait just a couple minutes before we get started, let people get their food and everything dialed in. I need to eat something real quick, and then we'll start probably in 5 minutes or so. So thanks for your attention. We'll see you in a little bit. Welcome again to Tell Us Something. Before we start, real quick, thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to the bookstore at the University of Montana. Without them, this would be a very different event. Thank you to Fact and Fiction Books. Thank you to the Top Hat. And thank you to all of you for coming out to support live storytelling here in Missoula, Montana. Our first storyteller. These contacts are close up, not great. Reid Reimers is a Missoula native with a master's in theater from the University of Montana. In the last 10 years, he has been an expressive arts educator, working with thousands of kids across the country, and has acted in dozens of local productions. A self-proclaimed Montucky vagabond, Reid has traveled extensively overseas on small-budget independent trips, often finding adventure and insights in the most unlikely of places. Please welcome Reid Reimers.
Get this to big person height here. Okay. Hi folks, how you doing? I have traveled quite a bit, and one of my favorite things about traveling is getting to meet local folks, and also just the openness that so many people find, this openness of having a stranger either come into your home for a meal or maybe stay overnight, somebody you just don't know at all. So when we're back here in Missoula, this was quite a few years ago, we were big fans of the couch surfing website, where essentially you open up your home to people, they kind of have a profile, and you can see recommendations. And so we had dozens of people stay with us from all around the country, doing cross-country bike trips or road trips, or just coming to Missoula for a job interview, something like that. And it was always just a wonderful experience. I love showing people around Missoula and showing the places that I'm from. And one time we had this couple come in. His name was Angus Jocko Ferguson, and he was this tall guy, really well built, really pale, bright ginger beard, shaved head, and he was just this really neat guy. And they stayed with us for a few days, and they were planning on moving to Missoula. We happened to have a room open in our house, so we were like, let's do it. You guys want to move in? And he was perfect. He had been to Oxford. He studied Shakespeare at Oxford. He dove right into the Missoula theater community and emceed a couple cabarets right off the bat. It was just a perfect fit for our kind of kooky lifestyle in our house. He had a little girlfriend. He was 27. She was 19, which was a little odd. But she was just this daffy little gal. And we really appreciated having her around. Now, when he moved in, he did tell us very clearly that he was in the military and that he was working with a particular group that he couldn't really talk about what he did. kind of had to keep things on the down low. Couldn't really talk about a lot of details. He was very protective of his mail coming in and of his computer and things. But he was just one of these guys that things just seemed to happen to. When he first moved in, he had this $100 gift card to Walmart and went down, and when he went to cash it, it ended up being like $1,000 through some like crazy thing. So he ended up getting all this crazy stuff. He would win raffles all the time for really expensive things like $1,000 computers and things. And he just was one of those people that things just seemed to just flow for really well. He would go off on military training, and he would come back with these big bags full of flak jackets and crazy like air testers and stuff. And he couldn't really talk about what he had been doing there, but he would say, oh, we were actually jumping out of planes. We were practicing to do that, or we were practicing to disarm like dirty bombs and stuff. But that's about all the details he would ever give. Well, one time he was on one of these trips with his girlfriend, and they decided to stop in at Maelstrom in Great Falls, and they were just going to go to the commissary to get some cheap Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Apparently it's really cheap there. And we get this call at like 3 in the morning from the little girlfriend, and she's completely panicked. She has a phone card that's about to run out, and she's like, Angus got arrested. They just dumped me here without any money or anything at the Walmart in Great Falls at 3 in the morning. And then the phone clicked out. So we were like, my roommate Amy and I jumped into action, and we jumped into our little friend's car, and we drove on a rescue mission to Great Falls. And we couldn't get any information about what was going on then, so we just brought her back. And over the next week, we found out that, first of all, that the car that they were rolling in had been reported as a stolen rental car, and they just bought it a few months ago, which is a pretty awkward situation for them. And also there was something odd. They couldn't find his like credentials. They couldn't confirm his credentials, which kind of made sense because he was in this kind of like private group. So over that week, we found out that he was under just $1,000 bail. So we were like, well, shoot, we'll drive together $1,000, go on a rescue mission to pick up Angus Jocko Ferguson in Great Falls. So we do another midnight run to Great Falls and go to get him, and we go in and pay the bail. And when he comes out, he's like dazed almost. And I was like, oh God, what did they do to you in there? He just had this really strange look on his face, and he wasn't talking at all. And we get in the car, and we're starting to drive back, and he's like, you guys, I have some stuff I need to tell you. And first of all, he says, I'm not 27, I'm 37. And secondly, he says, I am not in the military at all. And this stuff is going to come to light very quickly. And essentially, once we get back to Missoula, I'm going to have to flee, right? Like, flee the law, like go on the lam. I was like, does this really happen to normal people? Like, is this like a normal thing and just end up going on the lam? So it was a really emotional thing. We felt really hurt that he'd lied to us. And his girlfriend, of course, was just a mess. And we get back to Missoula, and he loads up a few things and just kind of goes trotting down Higgins and disappears. Well, lo and behold, right then at about noon that day, the FBI shows up at the house. And they're asking the whereabouts of Angus Jocko Ferguson. And they asked to search the house, which of course we let them do. And they just said, you know, if you have any information, please let us know. And we're like, we absolutely will, because we didn't know any of this stuff was going on. He fled. We don't know where he's going. He didn't tell us. And he has like $1,000 of our bail. When you're a poor, broke artist, that's a lot of money. Over the next probably 3 weeks, the FBI is constantly stopping by the house. They're constantly sitting out in a car outside of our place. I work at the Badlander, so I'd be riding my bike and I'd see them like following me at like 15 behind me, like real subtle, guys, real subtle. And it just started to get more and more, and they started to get more and more adamant and more like kind of attack him about, you must know where he is, blah, 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 blah. So at the time we were doing the Rocky Horror Show at the Wilma, we were getting ready for it. And I played Dr. Frankenfurter, which means I get to dance around in 7-inch platform heels. It's not exactly the easiest. And quick fun fact, we are doing it again at the Wilma this Halloween, so hope to see you guys down there. And so, yeah, nice, right? So I found the easiest way to get used to walking around these monstrosity hooker shoes is to actually hula hoop in them. So I made myself this huge, heavy hula hoop with like a pound of sand and a bunch of water in it. And I would just stand out on my lawn with my headphones in and just be hula hooping out in my heels, doing my thing. I'm sure a wonderful thing for people to see as they drive by. And so one night it was like a new moon, it was pitch black, and where our driveway was completely coated in kind of an archway of trees. So it's like pitch black in there. And I'm out there, and I'd had like a bottle of wine after rehearsal, and I'm hula hooping in my big heels. And I look over and there's this shadow kind of moves back around the corner of the house. And it scared the bejesus out of me. And I was like, all right, get out here. And like, it started like shouting. It startled me so bad. And this little federal agent comes out, this adorable little scamp, kind of his tail between his legs. And I was like, all right, where's the rest of you? Because they usually were in 2 people. And he's like, Greg, you should probably come out here. And so he comes out as well, and again, it's just pitch black, and I'm sitting there, and I had a bottle of wine, and was just berating these guys about violating our rights and being on private property, and how dare you, and we told you so many times that we would tell you if anything happened, and blah, blah, blah. And usually they'd really stood up and been like, you know, we have the right to do this, we have authority, blah, blah, blah. And this time they just kind of shirked off, and like, again, tail between their legs, like wandered away. I was like, that's kind of odd, and then I realized that they couldn't see my heels. So I'm a tall guy anyway, so I'm like, you know, about 7'2" in these things, just berating these federal agents like children who are, you know, barely came up to my nipple level, which was pretty hilarious. Ends up, we get one message from Angus through some throwaway cell phone apparently or something, just to let his girlfriend know that he was fine. We ended up kind of sending her back home because, of course, she's a mess. I mean, that makes sense. But also over these weeks, we start getting more and more information from the feds, and cards and letters are being sent to the house for stuff. And it ends up, like, one of them we got had Angus Jocko Ferguson listed, and then had, like, Brian Clements Johnson listed. And the next one had, like, 3 names. And the next one had, like, 4 names. And it ends up that this guy had been just running around the country, like starting using fake names, getting out fake credit cards. All these wins he had were just like fake credit cards he's been using. And his real name was Jeremy Clark Erskine, of all things. So it was kind of a dash to my trust in people, I guess, in some ways, because I'm not a gullible person. I feel like I can pick up on subtle things pretty well. I usually deal with things pretty logically. And so to have somebody kind of pull one over on me was just kind of a hurt to the ego, if anything, but also kind of made me start to like listen to people. Ends up, of course, he'd never been to Oxford, right? Was not in the military, wasn't any part of any of this kind of stuff. So it was definitely kind of a learning experience. They did eventually track him down. He's now in prison in California somewhere for impersonating an officer and all this scams and frauds and everything else. He did steal the car. All these things, but I guess it boiled down to me kind of having a choice, though, because all of a sudden somebody would be like, oh yeah, I got my master's in this, and I'd be like, really? Can I see your degree? I don't buy that for a second. During this time, but I essentially kind of came around the corner and just decided that I would rather live a trusting life and really open myself up still and really have faith that most people are good, stinking people, and maybe be burned a little bit here and there on some BS. Than live this paranoid kind of mess. So I guess I would just say that, you know, if you're ever in a situation like that, and if there's enough things that add up that are like, that's just crazy, I can't believe you won another computer. Don't necessarily be paranoid, but at least be aware. Okay. Thank you very much.
I think the next person is about this tall. If she's here. Haven't heard from her yet. Hey, Stephanie, are you here? I can't see with the light. Stephanie Hone? Okay, you're gonna have another chance if you're not here. Jennifer, you're getting kicked up to the beginning. Thanks. Jennifer Edwards is an artist, handywoman, and wannabe farmer. Please welcome to the stage Jennifer Edwards.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I can't see anybody. Okay, so. All right, so this is my story. You know, the day that I walked into the feed store to get some cat food, I didn't expect to break the law or become a criminal. I walked in the door and I heard this peep, 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 and I ended up standing in front of these 2 blue Polish chicks. They're chickens. And there were just 2 left in this run. And they're like regular chickens, but they've got like a little cotton top on top. And one of them looked kind of gimpy. But the other one that was peeping, that brought me over there, was like, I stood there and I tried not to let that little peep get into my heart, but it did. And so I brought him home. I got a 2-for-1 deal because the one looked kind of gimpy. And it ended up dying overnight. But, you know, and I don't know if any else are you or chicken owners, but you can't just have 1 chick. So I went back and I got 2 more chicks the next day and added them to my flock of, I had 3 other chicks. I had a couple of flyers that, even though I had a really tall fence, I kept flying over. And then I had Penelope, who was 13 and a half, and Buffy, who was about 4. And then I had these 3 new chicks that I kept in my bathroom until it was warm enough for them to eventually stage outside. And so I had the blue Polish chick, I had a little golden one, and a barred rock, which is black and white. And they were pretty sweet. They kind of stuck together. They were their own little chicken gang. And as they grew and developed, I started hearing funny noises. And eventually, I became aware that one of them was a rooster. And, you know, part of the problem here is that I'm a woman of a certain age and my emotions have become, I'm having a second adolescence emotionally. And I became very, very attached to this new brood of chickens. And, you know, of course I've named them. And, you know, started out, I was going to call him Blue, but I ended up calling the Barred Rock Blue, and I ended up calling him Percival, but in public I called him Priscilla the Fierce. And tried to hide his sexual identity. And unfortunately, he really grew, and he was made to crow. I mean, his whole being, he you know, he's like, you know, and he'd pump himself up and he just, you know, he would crow to dogs, he would crow to people, I mean, everything. And like, you know, and he was the best little gentleman too. Like, he'd find like the juiciest bug and he'd like, boop, 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 and he'd call the ladies over, you know, like, come here, this is great. And you know, if there was like a, you know, a raccoon or something prowling the neighborhood, he would let me know, but he stayed pretty quiet. And, you know, and I was checking in with my neighbors at all points, you know, saying, you know, does my rooster, you know, is he okay? Is he bugging you? And I would keep him in. I made sure that, you know, I put them in every night because I'm a responsible chicken owner. And I'd put them in every night, you know, and you know, at dark, and you know, in the morning I had the timer on, but I wouldn't let him out till about 8 or 9 in the morning. And you know, because as soon as he was out, he was crowing, and I was, you know, I didn't know what to do. It's such a dilemma. So I was, you know, I was calling vets, asking them if they did various operations. You know, either this or this, something. Nobody does that. You know, I thought about going rogue and keeping him in my attic. At one point, one of my neighbors came over and said, hey, you know, animal control came over. Somebody called and they're looking for your rooster. And I was house sitting for a friend of mine that also happened to have chickens. And so I stuffed him into a bag. I drove him over there and brought him over for a nice conjugal visit. And, you know, he made the hens happier. He did. I mean, you know, their laying went up. They were, you know, making happy noises. It was good. It was not a bad thing. And, you know, kind of like, you know, it's a life thing. I think it was important to everybody. So when animal control asked me, I said, no, there is no chicken here. Or there's no rooster here. I said, there's no rooster. No. And there wasn't at that moment. And so I brought him home. And it continued. You know, he had his own little, like, fan club. He was a little rock star. Like, if Phyllis Diller and Tina Turner and Iggy Pop had all gotten together and had an orgy, he could have been their love child. He was blonde, and he would just, you know, he was beautiful, a beautiful critter. And and I didn't know what to do. I mean, my neighbors around me were all really good except for one neighbor who was kind of taking it upon himself to, you know, be the neighborhood Nazi, or just like he's the guy that makes sure that nobody breaks the law. And he was the one guy too at the city council meetings when we were all speaking about wanting to have chickens in 2006, that he was the one guy that spoke against chickens, and for really weird reasons. So he had a thing. But he couldn't prove. I mean, it wasn't like he didn't know where it was coming from. I've got a fairly enclosed yard. I've got lots of shrubbery and trees and things. And the other, my neighbors, the other ones were all pretty good. And even the kids, when they came over for Halloween that year, they were like, oh, we love your rooster. We love your rooster. And, it's kind of nice. He had his own little fan club. And but one day it happened. It was, I had them for almost a year at this point, this spring. I was taking some stuff out to the dump, and between myself and my friend and we left the back gate open. And, and they're curious beasties. They're fragile and they're tasty, but they're curious. And they went wandering around the neighborhood, and, my neighbor was, the one guy, he was right there. It's like, oh, I see them. They're like, it's a herd of roosters out there. And he called animal control, and my other neighbors, they were like trying to herd them back into the yard in time, but I was caught. I was busted. I got the notice. They said, we know you have a rooster. And I had, till the end of April to find him a home. And that's one of the things, like the rooster crows, but the hen delivers the goods. It's hard to find homes for roosters. And a lot of farms, you have like one rooster and you have a flock of chickens. And so I tried. I was looking, I was asking, I was talking to friends and people that had farms, and it was down to April 30th, the last day. I had a pot of hot water on the stove. Whatever happened, a chicken was going to die that day. And because I had, out of the the chicks that I'd brought home, 2 were still alive, and out of the other chickens that I had, the 13-and-a-half-year-old had died. I had Buffy still, who was about 4-ish at that, 5-ish at that point. But it was the last day, and I decided I'd given myself till noon, even though I had till midnight. Because it's a process. It's a hard job, to kill a chicken or kill any beastie, I think, and I think that's kind of the way that it should be. I don't like the idea of commercial farms. I think that they're like, torture camps for animals, and I'm an omnivore. So, for me, I want my chickens, I want my beasties to have a good life before I eat them. And I think that that's true. I really believe that the kinder you are to them, the better they taste. But these guys, they're only a year old, so they hadn't had a full life yet. I mean, even the layer hens that you get later, they're all like 2.5 years old before they get killed. So, but there at 11:42, I get a call, and the Organics Farm in Corvallis called and said, we heard about your plight. We'll take your rooster. And I threw in Goldie also because she was just in her laying prime, so that the 2 of them could go together. And Buffy, I killed and put her in a pot, and I ate her. But that day, Percival and Goldie went to a new home. It was a little slice of chicken heaven. They're still there, I believe, and they're having a good life. That's my story.
Oh, pour one out for Percival. Or no, the one that she ate. Percival lived. Stephanie, second chance. Are you here? Okay, she's not here yet. Steve Gonzalez is a third-generation plasterer. Just a Dixie cup floating down the river of life. Saw Jimi Hendrix in concert while on organic mescaline. Please welcome Steve Gonzalez.
Okay, so me and Danny Howard, we're heading for the Tijuana-San Isidro border. And we need to find a place to pull over because he's driving my car, and I need to get in the trunk because I have to trunk it through the border. Back in 1969, they didn't let long hairs into Mexico. Back when I had hair, it was like Jerry Garcia, Charles Manson. Growing a beard, I needed to get in the trunk. So, anyway, I trunked it. A Mexican sneaking into Mexico. I mean, is that... So anyway, we make it. Okay, we pull over, we're in Tijuana. I get out, boom, we hit the bars. Party like it's 1969. So, kids from all over the place went to Tijuana because you only needed to be 18 to drink. So nobody went down there and nobody fought, nobody cared. We just had fun down there, and that's when I met Sandy Block at the Aloha Club. Okay, so anyway, we hook up. She went to Chula Vista High, I went to Sweetwater. We go back. We become an item. She lived with her aunt and uncle. Her mom and her younger sister lived nearby, Chula Vista, and her grandpa and grandma Blaine, they lived in Bonita. They were from Nebraska. They told me they were bohunks. I really didn't know what it meant, but they said, it's Bohemian. Okay. They're wholesome folk, did a lot of good cooking, a lot of desserts. I got a lot of recipes. So it was fun. Me and Sandy hung out for a while, but at that time, Sandy was a postal worker, mail carrier, whatever. But previously, she had hooked up with her high school boyfriend, Jim, who was a bad boy. And they had a rough relationship. And he was a junkie, and then, well, she tried to commit suicide 2 times. The first time, she jumped out of a moving car, and that didn't work because she tried it again. And this time, she sliced her wrist. Okay, at that time, she was a nurse at a mental institution. And the patients felt that she was crazier than they were. So they let her go. And then she went to be a postal person. I mean, that just sounds funny to me. Okay, so in time, Sandy, real pretty, long blonde hair down her back, started to hook up with Jimbo again and started to become, well, she became a junkie, okay? She started missing work and she lost her job and her people were concerned. So they asked me, what's going on with Sandy? We miss her. Is she, we don't see her. And she moved out of her aunt and uncle's place. So I said, okay, I'll take her over to Grandma and Grandpa Blaine's place and we'll have a visit. So I pick her up after work. We go over there and they're all happy. It's just all this love and there's coffee going and there's desserts going and Grandma's giving us a tour of the house. Grandpa's rolling pipe tobacco, roll your owns, and Grandma takes us into the bathroom. Beautiful remodel, shower curtains, tile, knicky-knacks hanging on the wall, those doilies that are starch that go over the Kleenex thingy, fuzzy toilet tank lid, fuzzy toilet lid thingy, vinyl foam toilet seat, and white shag carpet rug. Damn. So, we're visiting in the kitchen. Good old time. But I need to use the restroom, so I excuse myself, I go in there. Lift up the fuzzy toilet lid, and I look down, and it's like, damn, Grandma. Because back then, it was this saying, like, brown flush it down, yellow, it's mellow, whatever. I mean, you've been busy, Grandma. I mean, because the toilet was filled with toilet paper. I mean, she didn't flush all day. So I do my thing, and I'm going, damn, I'm washing my hands, and I go, oh, shit, I just flush it. So the old days, the tanks were like 5 gallons, and sometimes the water went up and it went, or did a spin. So I'm washing, being really careful not to get anything anywhere. And it's rising. I'm going, oh shit. And it's rising more. I'm going, no, God damn it, shit. Oh no, God. Why me? Oh shit. Drop to my knees, throw my arm in there. It's like the organic plunger. And I'm trying to grab the toilet paper in the hole. I'm doing that, and I'm reaching for the turnoff valve. I'm on my knees, right? I had come from work, so our work attire was boots, Levi's, and long sleeve flannel shirts. So my arm's in there, right, doing that thing. Okay, so it went down, and I'm on my knees going, oh man, how do I tell him? So I stand up and I'm wringing out my sleeve, and it's filled with toilet paper, and I'm going, how, why, shit, whatever. I blanked out. That was traumatic. I blanked out. Okay, I don't know what happened. I don't even remember what happened. But what I do know is now, to this day, if I go into anybody's bathroom, I don't care if I'm going to use it or not, I'm looking for a plunger and where the turnoff valve is. Because I don't know. So, my thoughts are, I think I was busted. Damn it. Janet? Holy cow. I think I was busted for flushing it down.
I flush it every time. Stephanie, one last try. Are you here? No. Okay. Ingrid, are you here? Can't see. Know that she's just getting here from out of town, so we'll give Ingrid a pass. We'll come back to Ingrid. But Megan is here. I know that she is. Oh, Ingrid is here. Awesome. Are you ready for this? Ingrid Beale was born on a glorious August day and has not let the world forget it ever since. Her hobbies include playing ukulele like a hipster flower child, struggling with her luscious lion's mane of hair, and collecting the souls of those who have wronged her. Please welcome Ingrid Beale.
Hi. I just got really nervous because I'm seeing a lot of faces that are kind of too familiar, and I was not expecting that. So I'm Ingrid, and I'm 16 years old, and I've never really done anything bust-worthy before. So it was really hard for me to come up with a topic for this. So I got out my little sheet of paper that said busted across the top, and the first thing that I wrote down was gay with a question mark. What am I? And so my story starts with a little 6-year-old Ingrid who was completely obsessed with marine biology. It was kind of a problem. And I can't remember if I just couldn't read or if I was still too lazy to actually be reading this book. But I remember sitting on my bed and I was flipping through this book and I was only looking at the pictures. And I got to page 16, and there's this picture of 4 kids. There was 1 boy, 1 girl, and then 2 boys. And they're feeding this orca whale in SeaWorld. And I had all these weird, like, kind of butterfly feelings about this, like, when I was looking at this girl, kind of like when you look at someone and you're like, damn. But I wasn't feeling that about those boys. And I was like, this is so weird. This is so wrong. Like, girls like boys and boys like girls. Like, that's just the way it is. It's the way it is. It's the way it goes. You're wrong. Something's wrong with you. And so I kind of went through, like, the rest of my life thinking that way. I don't really have any recollection of, like, crushes or anything like that. I feel like I just shut that part of my brain off. And then I got to 8th grade, and my world was kind of rocked. One of my friends in 8th grade, so a little backstory about the school that I went to. My graduating 8th grade class was 9 people, including myself. There were 8 girls and 1 boy. And I had known all of them since preschool. It was like we were related. And so it was like really weird to be attracted to them. It was just like, it didn't happen. And one of my friends, like one of my really good friends in 8th grade came out as bisexual. And I was like, what? 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 It just boggled my mind. And so I went home and I did some research. And there's like this whole other world that I didn't even know about. There's like, so bisexual, where you're attracted to both men and women, and then there's like pansexual, where you have the potential to be attracted to anybody. And then there's demisexual, where you're attracted to someone like on a spiritual level before a physical level. This was something that my like little 14-year-old brain just like could not handle. So I graduated from 8th grade. I'm still kind of boggled. And then I got to high school. And there were 345 other people in my grade, pretty evenly split out between boys and girls. And things really started to hit me. I was like, oh, okay, so you kind of look like a dude, and I'm really attracted to you, and then you kind of look like a girl, and I'm really attracted to you too, and I don't really know what's going on. And so at that point, I kind of started identifying with myself as bisexual, but I hadn't really told anyone else about it. It was still really iffy up there. And then about like halfway through my freshman year of high school, I started getting these crazy like anxiety problems. I was super anxious, and I was having like regular panic attacks. I don't know if that's happened to anyone else, but my life was kind of like hell for 4 months. And so I started going to counseling or therapy, and once I was like more comfortable with my therapist, I kind of brought it up. And she's like, well, is this something that you've talked to your parents about? Because if it isn't, it might bring you like relief or peace. She's a very down-to-earth lady. And I was like, no, I've never, ever considered that, ever, no. But it was kind of brought to my attention that maybe that would be something discussion-worthy. And so there was this one pretty chilly morning, and I got pulled out of my third period English class. I was kind of grateful for that because we were reading a really boring book. But I was like freaking out. I was like, okay, someone's dead. Like the dog died. My mom got in a car accident. My aunt was re-diagnosed with cancer. Like all of these awful things were going through my head. And I got to the office where they told me to go, and my dad was standing there. He's like, we're gonna go take a walk. We're gonna have some coffee. And in my head, I was like, I know you, you know me. We're not gonna talk. We're just gonna like awkwardly walk beside each other, get coffee, and awkwardly walk back. That's kind of what ended up happening until we got to Big Dipper. And then at Big Dipper, I drew the line. I was like, I can't. This is so awkward. And I just kind of like took a deep breath, and I was like, all right, this is happening. This is really happening. And I looked at him, and I was like, Dad, I think I'm gay. And there was this long pause. And I was like, oh shit. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. There's this long pause. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, oh. It was so nerve-wracking for some reason. Like I knew that he was gonna be okay with it, but there was this like little part in the back of my mind that was still like, yeah. And then it's kind of like getting into springish time. So you have like a timeline here. It's getting towards spring, and I like met this person. And I met this person who totally rocked my world. It was like nothing I had ever experienced before, because I kind of had like shut off that part of my brain for a little while and never really brought it back until now. And this person was born female, but they don't identify as female. They identify as gender neutral, which is another thing that was in this world that I had just then learned about. And I was like, there's more to this. What? It's so complicated. I met this person, and we had this amazing connection. It was a connection that I had never, ever thought could even be made with another human being. It was like something clicked, and it like really clicked. And before they were comfortable going on in the relationship that we had started, they were like, okay, you have to come out to your mom. Like, it's just a must. It was like, it almost felt like we were hiding it from my mom, because I was still really hesitant about it. And so that night I went home and I sat down at my kitchen table and I started writing this letter to my mom, because I just like, I can't talk, still to this day, I cannot talk to her about anything like this, and I don't know why. It really sucks. Like, that's a big part of what moms are for. They're for talking about boys or girls or your problems. And I just like, I can't do that. And so it was weird, and so I started writing this letter. And I get down like halfway through this letter, and it just like, it hit me, and it broke me. That people can't make the same connections that I made with this person because they're too scared. They're afraid that they're gonna lose people that are close to them. They're afraid that harm is gonna come to them. And there are people who can't make these connections because they don't thrive in an environment like I thrive in. I live in this wonderful place called Missoula, filled with these wonderful people, sometimes called Missoulians. Yes. And they're so accepting of like demisexual. They're okay with these kind of like weird little things that people, they feel that way, and they're open, they're open about that. And these crazy people, crazy in a good way people, called Missoulians, are like cool with it. They're like, dude, that's awesome. Tell me more about it. And so I live in this kind of environment where like that happens. But if I were to live in like some other place, I don't know where else, like a bigger city or a place where people are like this instead of like this, I would probably still be in that 4-month hell where I was having regular panic attacks. And so I guess the moral of this is that I'm so thankful for everyone that's in my life, that's been a part of my life so far, to give me the confidence to be okay with who I am, and to, you know, I have this amazing support group, and they're the kind of people who are like, cool, tell me more about this, rather than the kind of people who are like, get away from me. And so I want to thank my friends and my family and the unexpected faces in this room that I wasn't expecting to see. And I want to thank Missoula for being so cool about this kind of stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. Very brave. Thank you so much. Joyce, that's Ingrid's hair, Megan Hollinsworth, MS, is a mother, poet, dancer, and compassion activist. She is founder and creative director at Extinction Witness, a collaborative art project that stems from her spiritual practice and existential journey. Please welcome Megan Hollinsworth. And Elias will join her.
These are blinding lights.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Is that good for your mic?
This is fine.
Okay.
Hi. It is hard to see you. So thankful to have Elias allowed here. And so there are things that are impossible to talk about, and I'm going to talk about 4 of them in this story. Impossible and foolish. And one is a kiss, and another is grief. What's another? Orgasm is another. And what's the other? I'll come to the 4th in the story. And there are also 2 things that people say, and one is that be careful what you wish for. And another is when you are following your path, when you're living your heart's desires, you'll find true love. And so this story kind of wraps around all of that. And it begins with me following that path. In 2011, I lost a job, and so I ended up, after months and months of searching for work in an overcrowded job market, taking work experience off my resume and looking at what I was passionate about. And that was covered during my graduate study, looking at the human emotional and spiritual response to mass extinction and genocide. And so I started Extinction Witness, and I was working on this, and I wound up finding someone that I adore and fell in love with, but the timing was way off, and it was way off in many ways. It's like forbidden love, you know, that forbidden love. And it was long distance, and we started interacting long distance, and then we had a chance to meet in person. And it was like this, it was like magnetic, you know, where you just can't keep your hands off a person, where you just want to say, may I hold your hand? You know, the song, I Want to Hold Your Hand, is true. It's like, can I touch you? It's like, however I can I touch you? And so we had literally an hour, and we were talking at one point, and I think, I remember talking, and I remember I was looking down, and I said, love and change are the 2 constants, and all of a sudden I was pulled into this kiss. And it took me a while to even realize that it was a kiss. It was like one of those, like, what's happening moments. So here I am, the fool. And I finally got that it was a kiss, and that I was being kissed, and started to kiss back, and then we pulled away. And you find a moment that you want to live in forever. And I became a little bit like I flew back to Montana, and I became very much, Jennifer had mentioned that she was having a second childhood, this emotional thing. And I think I've been in the same thing myself. I became this 3-year-old who'd had like a taste of honey and then was told that she couldn't have any more. And so you can imagine the child in the toy store, or a child who's tasted something really, really sweet and is told never again. And And it was really hard for me to accept that. So I went through months and months of saying, yes, I'm tough, I can do this, I have a practice, I can meditate, I can do all this. And let me back up, actually, we missed an important part. So I got the message that we had to, kind of cut it off and not be in touch. I also have been a forest activist in my time, and I was reading a book, and it has in it the story of a giant sequoia that was cut in 1853. And I was reading the story, and it's a 300-foot diameter, 300 feet tall, 30-foot diameter tree. It was written as if it were 90-foot diameter. So I was imagining this massive, massive sequoia, like across this room. And I couldn't grieve. I couldn't cry. And I didn't know why I couldn't cry. I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? This is my passion. I've cried over forests for decades, and couldn't cry. And so I also couldn't sleep that night, and I ended up going to my body. And I found that grief, I found that scream in an orgasm that also shot light up through my body. That's the other thing we can't really talk about, which is awakening or enlightening, because it's impossible to say what this is. But it was energy, whatever it was shocking to me. It was a horrific scream. It would shatter these walls. And there was sensation awake in my sacrum for a while, and I told a yoga teacher, and she said, oh, that sounds like Kundalini. And I said, oh, it's Kundalini. So I named it Kundalini. I had a name for it. And so that was exciting, but I didn't know what I was in for really at the time. And so there's still this grasping from me for this human being that I love dearly. And it became very uncomfortable for myself and for him. So if you know what it's like to be saying to someone and setting boundaries for them when they're not accepting those boundaries or they're challenging those boundaries, it gets really painful. And it became that. And when I finally got it, the message came down, stop this. No, this isn't the path, stop this. It took me some time, because I had Elias with me actually that morning when that message came through. And then when he was down for the night, I, for the first time, really let that into my heart completely. What I'd felt for the world for a long time, which I had already accepted, that we're in the midst of a mass extinction, and that extinction happens, and that, eventually we have a choice about the time and how that happens and how we live, but we don't necessarily have a choice. Okay. We don't necessarily have a choice about, thank you, Eli. We don't have a choice about that happening. Death is what it is, and it happens. So I'd gone through the process of grieving the world, but I was really resistant to grieving this individual and not having him in my life. And when I let that through, I was like, why does it have to hurt so much? Why does this have to hurt so much? And I found myself on the couch, lying on my back, for the first time, actually speaking out to God or love or whatever we want to call something that is there, asking through these tears, why does it have to hurt so much? And what I got back was a message that, so you would believe my love, so that you would believe in love, believe my love, believe love. And that began 3 days of heaving grief, and here I am talking about something, again, that's impossible to talk about. So anyone who's suffered in this way and felt that kind of great loss in their life knows that it's impossible to express in words. And it was a clearing of this chakra. Does anyone know what this chakra is called? I can't think of it right now. Solar plexus. Yes, it was that clearing, and I'd always had pain in my solar plexus whenever I'd had massage or any body work done. It'd always been a stuck place. And so whatever had happened with this particular grief, it was a cracking of that and an opening into my heart. And on the 4th day of that, I was taking Elias to preschool or Montessori, and I thought that I would come home and spend the day in bed grieving like I'd been doing. And instead a poem broke through. And it's a poem called Love Like Wildfire. And I ended up setting that to film. I'd had these images. I'd gone to visit the giant sequoia in February to do a ceremony with the tree. And I had these images sitting there. And I knew that I wanted to use them, but I didn't have the music. I'd been searching and searching for the music to put together the film. And at the same time, this poetry came through, the song came through. I ended up using Eddie Vedder's Without You for the film. And so it just became this creative surge. And I didn't spend the day in bed. I spent the day writing, and then I spent the next week producing a film. So the moral of the story is, one, try to not talk about things that are impossible to talk about, if you can. 2, do your best not to grasp at the world or at people or at objects or whatever it is. Let the loss into your heart and feel it fully, and lie down on your back wherever you need to, and let the tears flow. And the moral, my understanding of the whole thing is that this is exactly how it had to happen. That if we had been able to be, if we'd spent time together, if we were able to be together, I wouldn't be half the human being that I am now. So I'm grateful to be alive through the process. I wanted to die, honestly, then, but I'm grateful to have the poetry and to be creative and to be alive with all of you. So that's it.
So here's to love and letting go. Ben Weiss moved to Missoula in 2002 with the intention of staying a year or two and figuring out what it was that he wanted to accomplish with his life. In the time since, he has fallen in love, enjoyed multiple careers, completed a master's program, and bought a house. While he might not know exactly what he wants to do with his life, he is pretty sure it includes music, radio, making it better for bicyclists, and the river. His timeline for staying in Missoula is open-ended. Please welcome Ben Weiss.
Still daylight. This is weird being on this stage with the sun coming in. Would never be accused of being oversensitive. I don't know if you put much stock in this thing, but I'm an Aquarius, and so I guess I'm prone to kind of big picture thinking and problem solving and things like that. Sympathy and empathy don't come easy for me. There's probably 3 tell us somethings worth of stories that we could unpack all of that, but that's not what the story is about today. So a few years ago, I went to, my wife and I went to her parents' house on San Juan Island, the big one, for a summer weekend, and they had said, hey, it's July, it's a great time to go crabbing. We should, make sure you bring clothes appropriate for crabbing. So we go out there, and I have kind of beater shorts on, and and a t-shirt, and Amy's mom, Deb, goes, well, Ben, you need some shoes. It's kind of muddy out there. You're going to need something that can withstand the mud. So I go and get my sandals, and I come back, and she goes, well, those are Crocs, Ben. Those are going to get lost, as soon as you take a step. Do you have anything else, or do we need to find some away and stuff? And so I looked at her, and I go, well, Deb, I have 4 pairs of shoes, and ran out to the car. And Deb her jaw dropped and just looks at Amy, my wife, and Amy goes, oh wait, we gotta back up. We gotta back up like 2 weeks. So 2 weeks before this, it was Amy's birthday, and we had a party at a friend's house, and it started with a barbecue, and her birthday is July 12th. It's like one of the best birthdays of the year. Because the weather's awesome here all the time. And so we had a barbecue, and we're playing outside and hanging out and drinking, heavily. And all of a sudden we think, hey, let's play some croquet, this is a good idea. Let's play some croquet. It's dark, but whatever. And then it was less dark and less dark and less dark. We realized that the sun was coming up as we were playing croquet on our birthday. And as I'm bent over to whack the ball, I noticed something in the grass, and I pick it up, and it's a full month of birth control pills. And so after some careful asking whose birth control pills are these, we found out that they didn't belong to anyone. We were trying to think who could have been at this party that they could have belonged to, and nothing. We had nothing. And so someone says, Ben, I guess they're yours. And it being like 4:45 in the morning, I said, all right, and took 2 weeks of birth control pills. So I chased him down with beer. It was really easy. So 2 weeks later, we're out on San Juan Island, and I tell Amy's mom, I brought 4 pairs of shoes with me on this trip. And Amy's mom looks at me as I run out to the car to get one of my other pairs of shoes, and looks at Amy, and Amy goes, don't worry, Mom, he's on birth control. And I don't know, I didn't think that I'm not trying to make a stereotypical boys are like this, girls are like this type of joke. I really thought that all of these shoes could be handy over the course of the weekend. I had a pair of sneakers for wearing casually. I had my Crocs for comfort and what I thought would be used for crabbing. I had a pair of boots for helping around the house and doing some yard work. They have horses out there and stuff, so, boots always come in handy. And then I had a knock-around pair of sneakers just in case. And so that's what I ended up using to go crabbing. And when I brought them back in, Deb said, well, I guess they're perfect. So we went crabbing, had a great trip, came back. The next week, we're hanging out in the kitchen after work one day, and Amy likes pressuring me on, what's my favorite this, what's my favorite that, and I have a real hard time saying, because I see lots of merit in lots of things, and don't want to proclaim that X is my favorite CD or my favorite book. But so she said, what's your favorite movie? And I don't know where this came from, what happened, but I blurted out, it's Cinema Paradiso! And I threw my hand, covered my forehead and started sobbing and said, that scene with the kisses, it gets me every time, and just uncontrollable. I could not stop. I was leaning against the doorway and, just shuddering. She had to console me. It was really, I don't know what happened. And then I was laughing and still crying and couldn't figure it out. And she said, Ben, do we need to do something? Because at this point it had been 3 weeks later, and I said, well, let's just finish out the cycle. let's see what happens if I'm still acting funny in a month, then maybe we can go and tell the doctor what I did. I'll confess and then maybe see if we need to balance this out. So, I haven't been grabbed by any uncontrollable fits of sobbing, or at least inexplicable fits of sobbing since then. But I do think that, I don't know, and I also can't say that I had some flash of empathy or that now all of a sudden I know what it feels like. I don't. I don't. But what I have learned is that there are many ways that you can see situations, and I try actively to be conscious of that now in all my dealings, whether it's on a board or at work or even with friends. I try and listen, I try and hear, and I recognize that practicing sympathy, practicing empathy is a daily and lifelong task, and one that is worth pursuing, if only so that it doesn't all come out at once, thinking about Cinema Paradiso. I don't know if I'm going to ingest a whole bunch of estrogen again in the future, but I like to think that I don't need to now, that now I can just sort of continue to be who I am while practicing, hearing what other people have to say and thinking about things from their perspective and trying to always be prepared and bring as many shoes as possible when going wherever I go. So, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Feel like I want to take birth control now. What? Oh, good. Oh, good. All right. Thanks, Ben. Kim Maynert is all about adventure, connection, and new possibilities. She has worked in foreign lands and sailed the seas and landed back in Montana, where she navigates both her inner and outer worlds, exploring and finding creative avenues to improve both. Please welcome Kim Maynert. That's as low as it goes. Yeah.
Okay, so Peter, Joe, and I were walking down what we thought was just a long, lonesome road. And it was getting awfully hot, and the sun was rising. And I was thinking pretty hard about what food might be ahead if we could just get to some town. When all of a sudden we heard the sound of a car coming up behind us, and we said, "Wow." Joe said, "It's a ride," and we three of us started running up to it, and all of a sudden, this two-toned, beat-up old Toyota Corolla pulls up and stops right ahead of us, and as we're running up, these two guys, kind of scruffy-looking with T-shirt and jeans and stuff, bust out of both sides of it, and one of them levels a gun at us, and whoa, we stopped right there like they told us to. What's going on here? And I'm thinking, really? Is this a holdup? I mean, it's not like we have a whole lot to steal, but, if they wanted my bedroll and had a few bucks, I mean, they could have it. I was pretty sure Peter was going to give them whatever he had. And Joe, well, I didn't know Joe all that well, but, I figured he'd probably ante up as well. And then I'm looking around going, it's not like there's a whole lot of places to run either. On one side was the California desert, and you could see those little heat waves beginning to rise out there. And on the other side is this fence. About 2 miles back, we had just hopped that fence because we were trying to get away from the railroad yard and all the cops that might be hanging out there and looking out for us. So we weren't going back in there. So what do? We sat down and we gave them our IDs and we answered their questions like, "Hey, did you see that huge no trespassing sign at the beginning of the road?" Or the one that says, railroad employees only past this point, and we're going, of course not. You know, we didn't start at the beginning of the road, but so there we were sitting there waiting, and so you see, Peter and I had started hopping freight trains back in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That was just a few days ago, and we were the first night we were out, we nearly froze our butts off until we ran into Joe. Joe was this young hobo kind of guy, and he showed us the ropes and things like bring a huge piece of cardboard and you can jam it into the axle underneath the semi-tractor trailers that are riding on their cars, you know, keeps the wind off of you. You can jam a spike into the railroad spike into the cargo doors and the box cars, and that keeps it from slamming shut. And and never get on or off a train unless it's stopped, because that's a big no-no. Stuff like that. And so there we were, the three of us, and we started working our way west and hopping trains, and it was a pretty good deal. And this last train, now that was the top. So we had jumped on it, and then every time it stopped, we'd jump off and kind of run up a few cars and kept doing that until finally we got to the engines. You know how they have, like on a train, you got the first engine, then they have several others behind it. So we had got onto the last of those engines, and man, it was nice. It was air conditioned and warm when you needed it, and they had this little tiny refrigerator about this big that had little cartons of water. I was like, whoa, we made it. This is awesome. And then at one stop, an engineer got on, and we thought, oh shit, we're busted there. But nope, he said, let me tell you some stories. He started telling us hobo stories and train stories and various things. Pretty cool. And he also told us that as we're heading towards Barstow, California, you got to watch out. That's the hottest yard in the nation. Hottest yard meaning a lot of railroad cops. So when we pulled into Barstow, he gets off one side, three of us get off the other side. We hightail it over the tracks, and they finally see this fence, pop over the fence to the road that's on the other side. All right, we made it. This is pretty cool. And that's where we were when we were walking down the road, and these scruffs come up and stop us. So there we are. We're sitting there 45 minutes later, and these two guys kind of wandered back to us, dropped the gun by then, and said, hey, you know, you guys really should not be trespassing here. This is railroad property. And we said, yeah, we know, you know, kind of apologized all over ourselves. And they said, well, you know, you really shouldn't be hopping freight trains. Yeah, we know. And then we're all sitting there, all five of us standing around going, okay, kind of obviously all five of us thinking the same thing at the same time. What's next? So, well, we could go walk all the way back to the yard, which was probably 3 miles back that direction. Well, that would just put us in the middle of the yard where they didn't want us in the first place. We could keep walking up ahead. Well, then obviously we'd be trespassing still, and we sure weren't going over that fence. So we jumped in the back of their two-tone beat-up Toyota Corolla, and they took us into town. Pretty nice deal. And then with the bearded guy, as we're getting out, he says, and you know, we don't want you back here in Barstow Yard ever again. And from this day on, I've never been back there.
Thank you, Kim. Kate Morris. Kate Morris is an artist and a playwright whose most recent play, Church, received a dramatic reading at this year's Montana Rep Colony, and it was awesome. I can't wait to see it being produced. We are sad to see her go, as she will soon be heading to Chicago to pursue her PhD in writing. Please welcome Kate Morris.
short. Mark does me proud, but I should probably, for the record, say that I'm only attaining an MFA rather than a PhD. That's all right. I love you. You're great. So, I had a feeling. I'm going to turn this on silent, because that's annoying, right? When Mark asked me, since I was going to be back in town, for this Tell Us Something, that if I wanted to have a story for Busted, I'm like, okay, what story of Busted should I choose? Oh, I'll do the one about being a punk, because I know a lot about punk rock. I know nothing about punk rock. So this is a story about being 18, young, dumb, and punk. When I went to college, it was 2001, and the world was wide open. And then, of course, 2 planes torpedoed our World Trade Center, and then everything was not wide open. It was horribly bad, don't go anywhere, war, 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 America, America, America. And here I was, caught in the middle. I was like, oh, okay, I'm in college now. What am I gonna do? Oh, I'll listen to punk rock, because I'm from Montana. I have no idea what punk rock is. Because I grew up in a town where there was no punk rock. And it was not Missoula. Can you guess? It was not Missoula. And I had no idea. I had no idea what it was about. I'm like, okay, so I think I know what punk is about. And I rented SLC Punk, and I'm like, yes! Giant turquoise mohawks, Matthew Lillard, dead on painkillers for no reason. This is what punk is about. And I listened to the Ramones. I'm like, yes! This is what punk is about, and The Clash is what punk is about, and no, Black Flag is what punk is about, and no, Misfits is what punk is about. And I'm like, oh God, I have no idea what. Okay, so, so yes, I had no idea, and I was 18, and it was midterm of my freshman year of college, and my friend from high school was dating a guy on an all-guy floor at my college. And the dudes were who we hung out with, and her boyfriend was like, dude, I'm gonna go see Real Big Fish in Spokane. And this was in Bozeman at MSU. And he's like, I'm gonna go see Real Big Fish in Spokane. Sugar Cult's opening for them, and I think it's gonna be awesome. And I'm like, oh my God, punk! But it was ska hyphen punk. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, let's get on our clown shoes and do some fun dances to, yeah, trombones and trumpets and the whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, this is, but at the time I was like, this is my chance to be punk. I don't care what hyphen is there. I am gonna be a punk rocker, and I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna wear my black tank top and my studded belt and my Converse All-Star shoes, and I am gonna punk this to the limit, even though I have a Film in America final the next day. I'm gonna study on my way there, and I'm gonna study on my way back in the middle of the night because it's punk. And I can do this because I'm a fucking punk. And so we get there, and it's 18-year-old times. And for those of you who have been 18, everyone except for Ingrid. I love you, Ingrid, you're great. We all know what that is. It's like, oh God, here we go, road trip, here we go, Bozeman, Spokane, yeah, okay. And we get to Whitworth College, and we smoke a bunch of weed, and I'm just like, this is what punk is about. And I'm like, oh, a bottle of wine and a 6-pack of Mike's Hard Lemonade? I'm gonna smuggle this in on my person, because that is what punk is about. And the bottle of wine goes here, and I got 2 bottles, like here, in my legs, and I shuffle in, I'm like, yeah, I'm a punk. And he's just like, okay, you're fine, kid, whatever, bouncer guy. And we get in there, and we get into the bathroom, and we drink all of the alcohol, because punk. And we get really drunk, and we're up there in the balcony because, you know, cheap seats, which is not punk. But then some dude comes up, he's like, floor tickets, we're like, punk, yeah, okay. And we get down onto the floor, and it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. How are we gonna do this? And we have a great time with the opener, which is kind of a horrible band. If you've listened to them now, they're not very good at all. But at the time, it was like, yeah, okay, mosh pit, punk. Oh God, I'm gonna fall over. And when the band gets done, I'm just like, yes, and I'm so drunk. Just the most 18-year-old drunk you can even imagine. Bad news drunk. And I'm like, I want the band to sign me with Sharpie markers. Punk rock. And I go out there and I forget my stolen, scammed floor ticket at the changeover for a ska punk band. And I'm just like so into it, and I get signed and everything, and I'm like, oh God, here I am back outside in the lobby, covered in crappy pseudo-punk signatures, drunk and 18 in Spokane. And it's time to just punk this out, and I assess. Okay, there is a woman at the door. She is shorter than me, and she has a mullet. She looks like she could probably take me, but she's shorter than me, and I'm fast because I ran track in high school. Wait, junior high. And I look over at the other door, and here's a big bruiser man, and he's got a shaved head, and he's about probably, 6'2", maybe 6 foot. He was probably 5'8", but I was drunk and 18. And I'm like, there is no way that I can probably run past that guy and get down onto the floor and into the mosh pit that's still kind of milling around and lose myself in the crowd because, smart. I'm like, okay, femme mullet's where it's at. And I just bolt past her, back into the auditorium at the break where nobody is doing anything and everybody can look at the drunk 18-year-old girl who is punk rocking her way past the bouncer without a floor ticket into there. And I leap over the first 2 rows of seats and onto my belly, and I am military crawling myself into the mosh pit because punk effing rock. Because you can't say the full swear word because you're only 18 and you have no idea what punk rock actually is. But this is one of those instances where people say true punk because they put the V's for U's, meaning that it's true punk. Yeah, this is one of those things. And I'm like, yes, I'm so true punk for right now. Oh my God, I'm crawling, it's really hard. And all of a sudden I'm being hoisted by the back of my jeans up over the seats, all of my arms pinned behind my back, and marched by the security guards out onto Spokompton streets in the middle of the night. And it's true, ladies and gentlemen, like the title of this theme, I was busted. Even better, all I had to do was wait 5 minutes out there, being like, oh, so this is what it means to be a punk. Okay, I feel really great about being a punk rocker right now. Here I am. And then this girl I don't even know who was with our group comes out, and she's just like, she throws me a floor ticket, and she's like, you want this? And I says, yeah! And I get back into the concert, and I don't even have to think about being a punk ever again. For the record, I got a C on my Film in America midterm because there was no studying done that day in the name of punk.
I forgot how taller I am than she is when I fixed the mic for her. But now I have this song stuck in my head, and I changed the words. Kate Morris is a punk rocker. Kate Morris is a punk rocker. Thank you, Kate. Nita Maddox is a Missoula native and shifter of paradigms. She is a yoga instructor and community organizer responsible for such awesomeness as Bellatrix and most recently, the Bear As You Dare bike ride here in Missoula on Sunday. Please welcome Nita Maddox.
I would almost be naked. I would almost be nervous. But I'm picturing you all naked, and it's relatively easy because I've seen some of you before. At this moment, actually, in talking about that, I'm feeling very demisexual because as people lay out their stories, the interconnections are just overwhelming me. And Missoula, I freaking love you people. You are. So my story kind of shapes around the theme of when you create a rigid structure for your children, you could maybe accidentally radicalize them. So when I was 14 years old, I grew up in Whitefish, Montana. And one side of the family was fourth generation from there, and the other side of the family is Blackfeet Indian, and they've been there since the land's been there. And my uncle was the mayor, my mom was the principal at the high school and the deacon at the Presbyterian church. My dad was the city judge. I knew everyone in that town. And my family had created a beautiful veneer of, and they meant it on some levels. They were very civically oriented, but there was this veneer of we were the best people. We were pure and good and golden. And my dad was not that. My dad was a drunk who beat the crap out of us on a regular basis. And he was a wonderful human being at the same time, but there was like a lot of hypocrisy that was being hidden behind this veneer of perfection. And the way my mom dealt with it was to become a very fundamentalist Christian. And I grew up in a household where we only had religious music, we only had religious writings, we only had religious films. We never talked about sex, and nudity was something that never happened in our household. So when I was 14 years old, I was quite possibly the most annoying. You knew this girl, you hated this girl. I'm sorry, we can't do that. Will your parents be there? Is that okay? Is there going to be adult supervision? I really don't think we should do that. I was the stellar athlete. I had straight A's. I never wore skirts that were above my knees. I was really annoying. And I thought that what I could do if I was only perfect, just perfect, pure and perfect, and prayed. Oh, I prayed I was going to be a nun. I visited that a few different times. It's not working out. If I was perfect, I could hold it all together. My family would be okay. My dad would be okay. I wasn't doing this because I needed to be perfect. I needed you to look at me and I was perfect. I was doing this because if I was perfect, I could save other people. And I was very serious about this. I loved these people and I wanted them to be okay. So I took that math homework very seriously. I took my junior church group very, very seriously. And 4 days before high school started, I'm 14 years old. In Whitefish, there's only really one thing to do 4 days before high school starts, and that's get dressed up in your Duran Duran outfits, hairspray out to here, and go walk around the lake and have people maybe look at you in your white patent boots that come up to here. Because it's the 80s. Because I hate to tell you this, I'm not 27, I'm 47, and after I finish the story, I may have to flee. So we're walking around the lake with a few of my friends, and this car pulls up, a beautiful Dodge Charger. It's primer painted. They've begun to put a lift kit on the front of it, and one door is still being worked on, so it's taped shut. And it pulls up, and these guys that are 3 years older go, "Hey, you girls need a ride anywhere?" And I'm about to be like, "Oh, no, 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 we cannot accept a ride from these boys." But Bill Driscoll is sitting in the back seat. And Bill Driscoll lived next door to me, a family of 5 Catholic boys. He was the youngest. And oh my God, Bill Driscoll was beautiful. And I thought, well, maybe this one time. I mean, I did put hairspray in my hair. So we hop in the car, they give us a ride. At that time, there's a grocery store, a parking lot, and a big hotel that has a liquor store in it in Whitefish. And they pull into the parking lot and they're like, you girls wait here, we're gonna go get something to drink. And I'm thinking, oh, we're gonna have soda in the park with Bill Driscoll. So the boys take a really long time. And pretty soon, the door that's taped shut with kind of this hard plastic on it is ripped open. And all of us girls scream as police officers yank us out, throw us down on the pavement, cuff us, and haul us into a paddy wagon. Turns out the boys were stealing alcohol. So we get to jail, and all the girls are sent home because we didn't know what was going on, and all the boys are 17 and they stole a couple bottles of wine, they're sent home. But my dad decides he's gonna prove something. This is Thursday. School starts on Monday. This is the last weekend of the summer. And Thursday, I spend the entire weekend in jail to teach me a lesson. So over the course of that weekend, there were 3 or 4 women through there who told me their stories. 3 of them were very kind and incredibly illuminating. And the fourth one was a huge woman who kept being like, baby, you know you want to kiss me. And there was a moment like that moment in a horror story where you say, why am I running from the mentally challenged, limping guy with a ski mask on? Screw you, let's fight. And after that, there were a lot of illusions that were stripped away from me. And after that, I thought, this game is rigged. Fuck you, motherfuckers. If I ever end up in jail again, I'm earning it. So we're gonna jump ahead 2 years now. And in that 2-year period of time, I'm dating a 26-year-old. I maybe worked at Dairy Queen for a week and said, this job's for suckers who wear shitty shoes. And I start dealing weed. But I'm still getting straight A's and I'm smart about it. I never bring it to school. I'm very careful about it. But I start being very ill, and it's kind of cutting into things. I'm like starting to have problems at school, and my dad, who was always a mixed bag, he suddenly becomes really compassionate and worried. And he's gonna take me to the doctor. But on the day he's gonna take me to the doctor, it's a little problematic because I'm like, damn, that person wants to buy a lot of weed. So I stay a straight A student, and I'm a really geeky straight A student on that note. And there's a honors science class, and there's 4 of us in that honors science class. 3 guys that could not get a date in high school and now own multi-million-dollar companies. And one of those kids in his garage finds his dad's anarchist cookbook. And we made every single bomb in that book. But there was one bomb we could never get to work, and this kid and I locked down on this like ego battle, like, that bomb won't work. Oh, yes, it will. Oh, no, that bomb will not work. So my dad takes me to the doctor one day. I decide it's the one day I can bring weed to school because I'm not going to be opening and closing my locker. I'm just going to leave it in the locker, go to the doctor's appointment, come back, it's all going to be okay. So we go to the doctor's appointment. Doctor's like, yeah, you're ill because you're pregnant. And Dad loses it, pulls the flask out in the doctor's office, and Dad has this unique technique. It's called the finger point, but it's a reinforced finger point, and when he's pissed off, there's no word that's monosyllabic. It's like you becomes 3 syllables long. So by the time we get back to the high school, Dad's drunk, I'm red-eyed, bruised, and the parking lot is full of cop cars. And we go in and we walk past the hallway, And I look down the hallway, and there's my favorite jacket, portions of my history book, and weed all over the hallway. We go into my mom, the high school principal's office. And my mom explains how I'm being arrested for dealing drugs, and my dad explains to my mom how I'm pregnant. And the police decide to politely step out and release me to the recognizance of my mom while my dad goes to get drunk. And my mom takes me home, and we pray, and she tells me, it's going to be okay, we're going to raise this child. You may not be able to go to college, but it's going to be all right. And I'm thinking, do I slit my wrists? Where does Dad keep his gun? What's going to happen here? And then Dad comes home, and it's October, and it's like one of those, it's getting dark early, and I remember walking out onto the porch steps and seeing like the neighbors' lights, and my dad coming up those steps, and he went to start in on me, and I remember that it wasn't even like a really hard punch. It was just a subtle punch right at the heart. And he fell backwards. And I remember the neighbors out on their porches and people saying things like, call 911. And the police arrived, and actually in a weird moment of clarity, they took me to my grandparents' house. And I ended up never living with my parents again, and finishing high school and having a full ride scholarship to college and getting straight A's. But when I was at that point, about a week into it, I thought, fuck, I'm 16. I'm like so screwed. What am I going to do? And my dad showed up at school, and he took me to Spokane, because back then you couldn't get an abortion in Montana. And we went and we had a drive there, and we got an abortion. And it was a beautiful conversation about being human. And about how when we hold up those artifices and we pretend to be things we're not, and we can't stand up and admit to our foibles and our fouls and how we are as human beings, you are setting yourself up for epic failure. And my grandfather always said, when there's a giant pile of shit, there's usually a pony nearby. And then I have a good friend who says, but why would you want to ride a poopy pony?
Mathematics! Thank you, Nita. We have one more storyteller, but before I bring her on stage, I want to thank a whole bunch of people, because Tell Us Something can't happen alone. Can't happen without all you being here, so thank yourselves. Can't happen without the storytellers, so thank all of them. And it can't happen without the bookstore at the University of Montana, Fact and Fiction Books, The Top Hat, Rockin' Rudy's. Who else do we have? Haley Faust designed these posters this year, and they are awesome. So we do screen-printed, hand-printed posters that each storyteller gets for free if they come up and tell a story. Zoo City Apparel for doing the screen prints. And I guess that's all I got to thank. Please like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Our handle is Psst, Tell Us. Joyce, absolutely. Joyce, without Joyce, this wouldn't happen either. Oh, wait. We also have music happening tonight after Tell Us Something is over. Hogan and Moss is the name of this band, and we're not related. They're a roots Americana folk duo from Austin, Texas, performing what they call scorch folk, aka new old-time mountain music on fire. So please stick around for Hogan and Moss after Tell Us Something. We also have donation containers at the front and the back doors if you decided that you enjoyed yourselves tonight Throw a couple dollars in those if you want. Courtney Blakely Shields is 38 and a half weeks pregnant with her first child. She and her husband Kurt are going to attempt a new world record of less than 2 minutes of childbirth. Okay, so cheer them on in the next week or so. If they can't get into the Guinness Book of World Records on that way, they are going to attempt to beat the record for making and eating the largest Frito pie. Realistic goals. I like this lady. Courtney started her life in South Carolina and spent time in Saudi Arabia, then Santa Fe, New Mexico. She moved here from Bellingham, Washington in 1998 to attend the University of Montana and play Lady Grizz soccer. She and Kurt are employed as public servants, which has opened their eyes to what happens behind the scenes in this lovely town. She's also hoping her water doesn't break while telling you something. Please welcome Courtney Blakely Shields.
Do I look like a big pink disco ball? I obviously don't have problems drawing attention to myself. So it was a Friday night, and I was working swing shift, which is 4:30 p.m. to 2:30 in the morning. And it was a pretty slow night, and I had some friends that said, "Come take your 11 o'clock break with us." And they were sitting at the Sunrise Saloon, and I thought, sure, 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm a city police officer for this fine city. And I walked into the bar, and people are kind of like, what's going on? What's wrong here? And I kind of say, hey, I'm just stopping in to say hi, and it kind of looks like I'm doing a bar check. And I joined my three friends at a table. And all 3 of them are probation and parole officers. We kind of congregate together. So I'm there with my friends, and I'm just kind of watching the scene, and people are dancing, the band's playing some pretty good country songs. And I get a male comes to the table and says, asks me to dance. And I said, oh, no, thank you. I'm flattered. And mind you, I'm in full uniform, my dress blues, looking shiny and serving the public, and I thought maybe I'm just really sparkly tonight or something. And I said no politely. 2 minutes later, there's a different guy comes to the table, asks me to dance, and at this point I'm thinking this is kind of weird, but it's nice, and again I don't mind the attention. And I said no politely. Third male, I said no politely, and then I'm just talking to my friends, and they just think this is the funniest thing. And at this point, Kurt and I are dating. We're not engaged, because I know if we were engaged, I would have flashed my ring and said, no, not available. So I couldn't use that, unfortunately. And the 4th male comes up. His name is Julian. He really wanted me to know who he was. Asked me to dance, and at this point, I just feel like I just really need to be a bitch about it because people aren't getting the message. And then I think maybe there's some sort of scavenger hunt going on, and I'm missing it. So anyway, Julian is relentless, and he's telling me what a great dancer he is. And one of the probation parole officers sitting there, his name's Jay, used to be a dance instructor, and we've danced together, and we've jitterbugged and 2-stepped, and he's an awesome dancer. So Julian's relentless, and I'm saying, I know you're not as good as Jay. I know you're not, because he's pretty drunk and he's not getting the message. He's not leaving. And he was like, oh yeah, I am. I said, well then go dance with that girl. Show me how good you are. I'll give you your score when you come back. So he dances with this lovely girl, comes back, and I was like, barely a 6, I tell Julian. And he's a little sad, but no big deal. But he's still really hounding our table and me, and I love to jitterbug. It's probably one of my favorite things to do. So now at this point, my temptations and the draw of the jitterbug, it's just too much for me. I can't handle it. So finally I said, Jay, let's just go show him how it's done. So we go out there, and obviously some things are kind of getting in the way. I've got my gun and my taser and a full belt, and it doesn't stop me though. It doesn't stop me. And we're spinning around, and Jay's a professional, and he can literally spin me about 8 times in a row like a ballerina, and then we just keep moving on. And it was a good dance. And I went back to the table. Some people were clapping and like, yay, good cop. We like the good cops. And I was like, and Julian's like, yeah, you're right. And he left, and he didn't bother us anymore. And then my cell phone's vibrating in my pocket, and it's my sergeant. So I was like, ooh, I gotta answer this. I run, scurry out of the bar. It's my sergeant. I said, hey, Sarge, what's up? And he's like, we just got a report of a female officer dancing at the sunrise. And this is, everybody's been in this moment like, do I lie or do I say, do I tell the truth? And being a police officer with integrity, I said, yeah, that's me. I guess I'm leaving. And I said, if we need to talk about this later, Sarge, please, let me know. So I leave. I think within the next half an hour, I had to go arrest someone, take them to jail. I'm in the jail. A female detention officer is like, was that you dancing? And I was like, yeah, yep. And the deal is, everybody listens to the same radio transmissions, and so everyone heard it. But what I didn't know I didn't know it was on the radio. So I was like, yeah, that was me. How did you know about that? Well, it was too busy a night, so I go back to the report room probably a couple hours later, and I'm typing, and one of my buddies comes in. He's like, dancing queen. And I was like, I really was not getting how everybody knew. I was oblivious, obviously. And my sarge came in to the report room, and he walks up, and he doesn't say anything and just does this. So I'm looking at him, and he's still doing this, so then I do this. And he literally slaps me on the hand and says, obviously don't ever do that again, and make sure you can hear your radio, your earpiece. And I was like, oh, this is terrible, this is not good. And what I didn't know is the person who called 911 got so close that she could see my name on my name tag, C. Blakely, so I couldn't deny that for sure. But anyway, she calls 911. The dispatcher tries to get me on the radio, and I don't answer. She tries like 3 times, and my corporal stepped in and said, she's on break, what do you need? And she puts the whole call that there's a female officer dancing in uniform at the Sunrise Saloon. It's very unprofessional, and da-da-da-da. And unfortunately, officers aren't always listening to their radio. A different sergeant didn't quite hear it, and it said 10-9, which means repeat. So she put it again on the radio and says, well, Officer Blakely's the only female officer working right now. It must be her. I didn't know any of that happened till much later in the shift, so then I know I'm really busted. But I kind of thought we were done. I thought my sergeant handled it very well. And I went home. 2 days later, I got a call from my lieutenant who said, you need to come into shift 2 hours early. And then I'm thinking, okay, yeah, maybe a level 1 disciplinary action. Okay, that's probably deserved. Is the assistant chief of police here? No? The mayor? No? Good. So I get called into the assistant chief's office with my lieutenant. The chief is actually in Mexico at the time, gets wind of this, takes time out of his vacation to write a nice little letter that the assistant chief presents, and he says, you're getting a level 3 disciplinary action, which is 2 days suspension without pay, and you need to go. And I thought I was being punked. And I said, are you kidding me? And they said no, to which I responded with a panic attack and crying and couldn't breathe and had to get someone to drive me to my car because I had to go home. And I went and told Kurt what happened, and he was really gracious. said something like, yeah, I wouldn't have expected this, but I also wouldn't have been dancing in uniform in a bar. And so what ended up happening is the next day, since I was suspended, I did what any other good Missoulian would do on a nice warm Saturday, September afternoon. And I took my lawyer friend to the North Fork of the Blackfoot and caught some beautiful cutthroat trout. And after a couple weeks, what ended up happening is we grieved the disciplinary action. I really would have accepted a level 1 or 2. A level 4 is getting fired, and I didn't quite agree with the level 3. Took it up to the mayor's level, and they did lower it. And the mayor, probably about 8 months later, my sentence was almost over. It's really a whole year of a letter in your file. And the mayor came up to me and said, we've all made mistakes. And he said, if you're going to get busted for something, do it doing something you love. Well, thanks.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you to all the storytellers. It's a little weird to have this many people in the top hat at this time of night and it's still light outside. So thank you to all you all for coming out to support live storytelling in Missoula. Thank you to Fact and Fiction Books, the University Bookstore. The bookstore at the University of Montana. Top Hat Lounge. Our next event is October 9th. We're looking for storytellers, the things that we carry. Drop a couple dollars in the donation at the doors and stick around for the music tonight. Thanks again. Have a great evening.